Hi there champions, we're back again and still on fundamentals. Before I get started, you know what I'm going to talk to you about. No loaded ammunition or no live ammunition anywhere in the same room as you're doing dry fire or this type of training. And always check your firearm before you start your training just to make sure. So let's do that. I've only got the camera there looking at me, so there's no problem. Out comes the firearm, safe direction. Only got a practice magazine in it, by the way. This is available, it's a double alpha practice mag, very useful if you're doing a lot of dry fire. Make sure that the gun is empty and we can get started. We're going to talk first of all about stance, and all of us or most of us know about it as the Isosceles stance. For the novice shooter or the person that's watching this introduction for the first time, the Isosceles stance gets its name from the fact that if you draw a line up from the floor to your groin and from your chest to where your hands meet each other, there are basically two isosceles triangles. It's a very stable stance. It allows transition in any direction or lateral transition in any direction, keeping you nicely balanced. And it provides you with a stable shooting platform and a platform that you can move rapidly from. Having said that, I'd also like to mention that many of the things that we do in sport shooting underpin any defensive shooting skills that you would like to develop. So a lot of these things, although they are designed and intended to be used on the sport shooting range in competition, will give you the confidence to manage your firearm in an unexpected situation away from the shooting range. But this is about sport shooting, and that's what we're talking about today in terms of the stance. Isosceles stance, your feet are always slightly more than your shoulder, apart than your shoulder width, just slightly more, not an exaggeration like that, slightly more uncomfortable. The knees just slightly flexed and flexible, not stiff and stiffened, simply because whether you're in a situation away from the shooting range or whether you're in a competition environment, you want to be able to move explosively from one position to the next position. And if you're standing with stiff knees and a stiff body, you're not going to be able to do that. The next thing that I like to teach my students is that when you are engaging a target or an array of targets, you want to have the top half of your body relatively relaxed. Mainly your body relaxed as well and not tense, but certainly from the top half, from the waist upwards, relaxed. I often see shooters pulling themselves into unnatural positions to engage a target, getting down into something like this or working in that type of position to engage a target, when in actual fact it is a simple action of bringing the gun up and the sights up to between you and the target, looking at the target that you want to engage and bringing the firearm up into a line to where it is between, where the sights arrive between your eyes and the target in a relaxed fashion. Almost like you would be greeting one of your friends in the shopping center. You wouldn't get yourself down into a position like that to speak to one of your friends when you're greeting them. Think about it in those terms. So the isosceles stance is like that. Something else that I'll mention, although we cover it in more advanced training later, is something known as the sector of fire. And if I were engaging a target where you are at the camera and one to the left, I would maybe have my left foot angled out a little bit so that if I drew a line from the toes of my left foot, it would be just slightly outside of that target, which would allow me to transition seamlessly without having to move my feet at all, simply using my hips and my knees to swing that transition. Much more about transitions later. It's one of the biggest time savers in training. So that's the stance. What we'd also like to do with our stance is the extension of the arms. We don't want to overextend ourselves, pushing our arms out, tensing our shoulders up, making our elbows stiff and putting ourselves off balance. We'd like to maintain a fairly upright stance with a slight balance, which could be described as chest forward and hips back, or nose over toes. If I had a string with a weight hanging off the front of my nose, the weight should touch the ground just in front of my toes. That is shifting the weight of my body just forward enough so that I can manage transitions nicely, and I can also manage repetitive shots, 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 shots at a time, without getting pushed back by the recoil. So what I'm saying to you is, if we're standing straight up to start and you have a number of shots in a row, you could end up feeling off balance, where if you are using that weight, you will be able to maintain that recoil management. And recoil management, as you will discover as we move through our training and through your shooting, is very important in terms of being able to get back, stay on the target, or get back onto the same spot on the target quickly. So that's the last point there on the stance. It's relaxed, it's firm. There are other tactical considerations as well, which we're not going to discuss in this basic introduction. But that's your isosceles stance basically there. Thank you. Have a great day.